What does Family Guy, Samurai Jack, and Fairly Odd Parents all have in common? The same creative team that brought us an arrogant young scientist from the Midwest with an Eastern European accent. Join us as we tune into Dexter's Laboratory.
Thank you for joining us for Tune In for What? Today is Dexter's Laboratory. I am Alex, and I am joined here, as always, with my friend Dustin.
Hey, Alex, how you doing today, buddy?
Doing all right. And it's a Monday here in the Pacific Northwest, so a beautiful day outside in the winter.
That's true. We are in the lovely Portland, Oregon, and it is always rainy, always gloomy, and thanks to daylight savings, it gets dark at around 3:30 p.m.
He's exaggerating, but about 4:30, 4:45 is very realistic.
Yeah. I'm like, I can't tell if it's time for dinner, lunch, or it's midnight. I don't know which.
Why am I awake?
Yeah,
it's 6.
Oh. So yeah. Let's talk a little bit about today's adventure. I'm not going to lie. I picked this one thinking, hey, Dexter's Laboratory. I had fun with that as a kid. I remember watching it. I enjoyed it.
And I was excited because I'd never seen it. And I know that it's like so iconic, and especially in terms of like Cartoon Network, but I'd never seen it. I missed out on kind of that whole start of Cartoon Network.
See, I don't remember being iconic. I was just thinking, yeah, this will be fun. You know what? But then I started doing some like deep diving into this stuff, and whoa, boy, this was a series. This pioneered a lot of stuff. But so why don't we get started?
Yes. So as mentioned, we're doing Dexter's Laboratory from creator Genndy Tartakovsky. Got to get that right because we're going to have to say it a number of times, but I'm probably just going to start referring to him as Genndy, which I think is how his first name is pronounced.
I'm not going to lie. I watched several interviews with him today. I was like, just say your name again. Say your name. How do you pronounce that? And I was like, all right. But it is, I'm pretty sure it's Genndy.
Genndy? Okay. Yeah. We're going to refer to him as Genndy because I don't want to be embarrassed and butcher his last name, and, Gendy's much easier. But yeah, he created Dexter's Laboratory, like sole creator. And I found it super interesting that he started it actually as a short when he was in school, and it was like one of his final projects. It was a pencil test called Changes, and that was kind of the conception.
Yeah. Well, I guess he had done the pencil test, and maybe I'm misremembering this, but he had done the pencil test, and then he got picked up for Batman the Animated Series.
Yeah, the school apparently they did some sort of showcase of their like final projects of students, and they showed it to producers of Batman, and they liked what he did, and they ended up hiring him to do, I guess, some just random stuff. Like, I think he's partially uncredited.
Yeah, like I went back and tried to look him up in the credits of Batman the Animated Series, which is a huge favorite of mine. And I was like, how did I not know he was a part of this? And I was like, oh, he was not a major part of this.
I think he was like a contributing editor, or not editor, animator, or something like that, but not anything like, he didn't do like a ton of episodes.
Yeah, because after that, he actually went to work on one of your favorite cartoons, The Critic.
Oh, I keep forgetting because actually in between that, I think he worked on Two Stupid Dogs.
Oh, he may. Yeah, that's probably right.
I think it was Two Stupid Dogs, and then while he was I do know that because there's a common thread I read, and what it is Two Stupid Dogs. Then he went on to do The Critic, and he was something called a sheet timer. Which had to do with like organizing shots for it. You're the in-between of the director and producer and the animation house, and you help make sure that the vision is captured in the right timing of the way it's filmed by the camera. And not exciting if you want to be an animator or a creator.
Yeah, right.
But I also don't know enough to know exactly what a sheet timer
I read what a sheet timer was, and I actually thought it was somebody who just kind of helped time the storyboards to like the mouse or something. I was like, oh, this guy probably just counted frames or something.
Just sitting there with a stopwatch.
Yeah, that's kind of what I thought. I was just like, oh, okay. And then you told me that, and I was like, oh, that is not quite what I thought that was.
But it was there that he got a call from a producer that he worked on Two Stupid Dogs with. And the producer was like, hey, I showed this to my buddies at Cartoon Network, and they're interested in you storyboarding like a 7-minute version of your short film Changes. And
Yeah, which was actually part of the What a Cartoon anthology series, which I remember watching that as a kid, and it was, I mean, exactly that. It was just an anthology of shorts, like cartoon shorts, and then at one point kids would vote on them and say, yes, I want to see that as like a full cartoon, like conceptualize this.
Why don't they do that nowadays? It'd be so cool to get like just a sample of like, here's 20 options. We're gonna pick 5, the top 5. Go.
That would be cool. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I really dig like anthology series even nowadays. So I would love to see more of that, and especially even kind of geared towards kids animations or some of the creative things that they can do and then stuff like.
You can get away with a lot when you don't have anything else to continue with. So it's just like you can swing for the fences and it's going to hit or miss, but at least you might have the freedom to do it.
Yeah, so Dexter's Laboratory was one of the shorts, and it was an overwhelming success. They picked it up and brought it onto Cartoon Network, and it aired in 1996. And that's when it first premiered. So I would have been 12 years old, I think, at the
We're
time.
the same age, so.
Yeah, that's crazy. So I feel like I was younger when that came out, but I guess that's probably about right.
Yeah, whenever it was greenlit, he became like one of the youngest animation directors, like for his like little time period, because he was like, I do have this written. He was 27.
Yeah.
Which makes me feel very unaccomplished at my age.
Talk about unaccomplished. Yeah, so he ended up doing like learning English at like 7 years old from comic books, and like started to learn to draw from comic books. Like was a big Marvel fan, which you see that influence pretty heavily in Dexter's Laboratory in one of the shorts, which I think this is a great segue into the characters of Dexter's Laboratory.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it was interesting having no context of any of these characters, having to go and watch specific episodes, like to get introduced to some of them, since I was unfamiliar with all of them.
Yeah, so to start, Dexter's Laboratory is pretty much broken up into 3 sections. You've got the Dexter's Laboratory part, and then you have a couple of other like short segments featuring other characters, like Dial M for Monkey and the Justice Friends. So to kick it off, Dexter's Laboratory, of course, you've got Dexter, and then you've got his sister,
Dee Dee.
who, is always...
Ooh, what's this button do?
Exactly. Always rambunctious, breaking things, basically the troublemaker, the chaos element of the show.
Real quick, a favorite quote I heard about Dee Dee was she destroys things out of ignorant curiosity.
Ignorant curiosity.
And I was like, ignorant curiosity, that does sum up a lot of what you see of her in the lab.
That's a good line. Ignorant curiosity. I love it. And then you got the dad, who... funny enough, he's voiced by the very famous Jeff Bennett, but they wanted Phil Hartman to play him. And so you can definitely hear Jeff Bennett doing a really good Phil Hartman impression.
God, that would have been so interesting to do that, especially like because Phil Hartman had done so much with The Simpsons up to that point, like doing so many voices.
Yeah, and then you've got Dexter's mom, who, and by the way, dad and mom are literally just dad and mom. I don't believe they're ever given names in the series.
No,
they are not credited to have names. They were originally going to get Jan Hooks to voice her, another Saturday Night Live alum. But once they couldn't get Phil Hartman, she was like, "I'm only in if Phil Hartman's in." So
that makes sense. I mean, if you can get Phil Hartman,
yeah. And then you've got Dexter's rival, the evil. He's not really, and he's not evil at first. It's
he's legitimately like a rival.
He's a rival.
Yeah.
He gets evil in the end, but in the beginning he's very much, and that is Mandark. Oh, and he's got a first name and a last name.
Isn't the first name Susan?
The first name is Susan, and the last name, I'm going to try to pronounce this here, but I'm going to butcher this. Astronomonov.
Let me try. Where am I looking here? Susan Mandark Astronomonov.
Yeah, there. So that's not a mouthful at all. So, and those characters pretty much sum up Dexter's Laboratory.
Yeah, and I mean, even then, the mom and dad are kind of a bit irrelevant, it seems like, most of the time, because they're just ignorant to everything and just kind of there to be the oblivious parents.
They are, but I think most of the best episodes feature them in some way, shape, or form, in my opinion. Like, I feel like they've got the strong... I don't know. They bring a bit of that goofy adult element that sometimes is missing.
It's the aloof adult.
The aloof adult, yeah. You see a lot of that in the 90s cartoons in particular. You know, a lot of the times the parents were like, yeah, aloof, kind of stupid, you know. Yeah,
Unaware of what their kids were getting up to. The kids
yeah.
are always smarter.
Those wacky children, yeah. And then Dexter had a pet monkey.
What was his name?
Oh, monkey.
Oh, very clever, Dexter. For as smart as you are.
Yeah. Oh, Dexter was not a good on his naming conventions, but you know he got it down. But so he had a pet monkey, or well, I guess more of a lab monkey that he experiments on, and he thinks the monkey is a failure. Turns out the monkey is actually a superhero who is also named
Oh, this is Monkey.
Monkey. Yes.
See, I didn't watch any of the Dial M for Monkey shorts.
Oh, okay.
So I totally missed that.
Okay,
So I didn't know if
yeah.
his superhero name might have been something else, and you were setting me up for failure.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
thank you.
No, yeah. Well,
I was going to say Dee Dee, but
passed the ball to you, and you succeeded. So there's Monkey. There's the Commander General, which is just named Commander General, and then Agent Honeydew, who is the kind of sexy.
femme fatale spy.
Exactly that. And then here's the other segment here, which is the Justice Friends.
Which may be the best spin-off name of like a Justice Friends type thing.
Love the superhero names. Not so much the main hero names. These are good.
Do you think any nerds real quick got mad because all the superheroes are based off of Marvel, but it's the Justice Friends?
Well, I would say, so first off, we got Major Glory. And Major Glory is absolutely a Captain America / Superman hybrid. He's absolutely a combination of the two. And these segments are not so much them fighting crime, it's them living in a house together, like real world.
Yeah, it's like MTV's Real World meets three superheroes who don't really get along all that great anyway.
So you've got Major Glory, who is definitely Superman, Captain America. You got Valhallen, which is Thor meets Eddie Van Halen, and
Van Halen.
yeah, and he's fantastic. Always playing like heavy metal, very much kind of the goofy,
Kind of like a
irresponsible.
surfer rock metal dude. Yeah.
And I can't remember the adjective in front of Krunk's name. It's like incredible.
The Infraggable.
Infraggable, thank you. It was like, yeah, the Infraggable Krunk, who is very much your Hulk character.
He's Purple Hulk.
Purple Hulk.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He's Grimace if Grimace became the Hulk.
That said, there were several episodes where they introduced some of their other hero friends, and I did write down some of the names I loved because I thought these were just fantastic.
Spit them out.
Yeah. So there's Tiki Torch, who is basically the Hawaiian flame, like Human Torch. Sam R.I., who is a samurai.
No.
And I think this was my favorite. The hip hop capital G, who grows really tall.
Hip hop capital G.
Well, he's a hip hop artist, and his name is Capital G.
Oh. Again, I missed out on some stuff apparently.
Yeah. They only show up for really bit segments. They may have like a line or two at best.
I think they only and then I think the Justice Friends only lasted like season 1 or 2. I don't think it went through the whole series.
No, I can't. Yeah, they definitely, those were kind of sprinkled in. Mm-hmm. The majority of the show took place with Dexter building machines, Dexter's laboratory, getting into hijinks, that kind of stuff. So, just to kind of do some research on this, like I've seen most of this before as a kid, but I'm showing my age here, but that was probably 24 years ago.
Ugh. Wow, way to age us. We could have said we were hip 25-year-olds.
I could have, but we're not, and unfortunately, that's not how it's going to work. So we looked up what are some of the top episodes to watch, and admittedly, the list we found, and I forgot the site. I can link it in the description later, but
we also don't need to shame the site because we don't agree.
That's true. I was going to say, I'm not a huge fan of the episodes that it told us to pick.
There was one that was like insanely hard for me to watch because I just found it irritating.
Yeah, it was real bad. Bad's the right word, but it didn't do it for me.
Yeah, I mean, to each their own. Obviously, there's enough people out there who liked it enough to do it, but...
So let's get into the episodes. Let's start with the first one that we watched, which was The Muffin King.
I just wrote down, my initial reaction was weird story about dad's addiction toward mom's muffins. Euphemism? ?
Yeah, Dad says strictly, I only married your mother for the muffins.
There's a lot of strange lines that he says in that, and then the way he's pretty much a drug addict with
Yes,
them.
he is
Or like
so keen.
comes off like a sex fiend almost, the way he hungers for those
Yeah,
muffins.
yeah. You definitely are led to believe that the muffins are something else.
I feel dirty just talking about it.
Yeah, about mom's muffins.
Yeah.
So it is pretty funny. The dad comes up with like, he's all upset. Mom puts Dee Dee and Dexter in charge of, hey, guard these muffins with your life. Do not let your dad. He is a muffin fiend, I believe is the word she uses too.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
And then she's like, I'm going to go to the store and leave you guys with this crazed man.
Yeah, she proceeds to tell the kids that she is going to the store and she's going to leave out the back, and then proceeds to leave out the front door anyways, which I thought was funny.
Aloof parents?
Aloof parents, yeah. And then the dad comes up with several ways to try to get the schemes. Yes, so he kicks it off with, I think he just asks the kids for a muffin and they just tell him no.
Oh, it escalates, yeah.
Oh, it escalates quick. And then he dresses like their mother. I think that was my favorite one.
That one was by far the best. And then it was Dexter, like, thinking it was all okay, and then he's like, wait a second, that's stubble.
Yeah, mom's got a more gnarly beard than usual. Something's wrong here. So you got the mom, mom's away, Dexter, Dee Dee, so they think dad's the mom. And then I think after that, I did appreciate that the cross-dressing dad is like, hey, like, if you kids let me have a muffin, we can all go to Chubby Cheese's.
Yeah.
Which I love the pizza name of that.
So
Chubby
close.
Cheese.
It reminds me of my childhood. All the chubby cheese I could eat.
I could totally see Chubby Cheese being a place we went to as children. So, with just a fat mouse and fat kids.
Well, it's Chuck E. Cheese.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, I'm well aware. I just like the name Chubby Cheese.
Oh, just an even fatter mouse? Just on a rascal?
Oh, yeah.
Is it your birthday? Rascaling up to you.
Gets up like he's trying to grab something off the top
Out of breath
shelf.
singing happy birthday to you.
Oh, boy. Oh, that's a depressing thought.
I just kind of got sad. We may need to take a break.
Yeah. Yeah, how old do mice live? Chuck E. Cheese mouse has got to be...
He's like 45.
Yeah, he's that's probably not the same mouse. Probably, definitely died.
I hope he has. No, I mean, it's like a recasting.
Yeah.
It's some 80-year-old decrepit old mouse.
Yeah, it's like that bee from the Honey Nut Cheerios. You know that's not the same bee.
No,
Yep.
Definitely a different bee.
So we get through, but then it escalates to a point where the dad, like a squirrel, then comes up to the counter, steals the muffins, and then dad chases...
It got real.
Yeah, dad chases the squirrel outside and proceeds to get in a full-on throwdown with this squirrel.
This was my favorite part. Is he's literally punching and kicking a squirrel.
Yeah, they animate that. Like, he kicks that squirrel straight in the nuts.
God, that irony is not lost.
No, I think they knew what they were doing with that episode. So, then mom comes in.
Sees the dad protecting the muffins from said squirrel.
Like, yeah, all right, you can have a muffin.
As your reward because you've been a hero.
But guess what?
Dun dun dun!
The muffin.
The squirrel and dad were in cahoots.
The whole time.
And he then hands the squirrel a bag of nuts.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And that is the episode. That's, all in all, that was a good episode.
That was the first episode I ever saw of Dexter's Lab, and I had no idea what to expect, and I was not expecting that.
Yeah. I will say, one thing that I've noticed about Dexter's Lab, and I probably ignored this a lot as a kid, but as I get older, I kind of look a little bit more in the backgrounds, like what's happening in the backgrounds. Mm-hmm. In the background coloring in these episodes are always kind of interesting. They're a little, I don't know if muted's the right word, but they're almost like one color.
I always called it's flat without detail.
Yeah.
Like if something was made of wood, you'd never really know, except that, it's a cabinet. It's probably made of wood, but they're not showing wood grain or any details.
No.
Everything has a very flat, untextured look to it.
Yeah.
So it was a curious art style choice, but he's kind of kept with that through his career.
Yeah, well, and I noticed whenever Dexter's in like the actual lab, like the lab's pretty much just got scribbles on the background, like these are science symbols, and you'll see them on a blue
I've gone
background.
to school for some science, and that is actually pretty scientifically accurate.
That's what the backgrounds of your schools all look like. Just,
Pure science.
yeah, just blue with some white chalk symbols and flasks and stuff.
Well, the secret is Dexter's actually illiterate.
Ah.
That's him writing. It's very sad.
Yeah. But I did appreciate, and I noticed it in a couple episodes too, when it coming to like the sound design, that when he was in his lab and he would talk, there seemed to be like an echo. Now I don't know if that was just wherever they recorded the woman doing Dexter's voice.
I would assume that was intentional if you only really heard it in the lab, so that show the expansiveness of it.
Yeah, like the lab was big and you can hear it and stuff. And I thought that was pretty cool. I always really.
I didn't
dug
even
that.
pick up on that, but that's a cool little note of like.
I don't know if I caught it in every episode, but I definitely were a couple episodes in which they were in a lab, and I was like, "Ooh, sounds like there was an echo."
Maybe then it was dependent on where they recorded.
I was like, at the time. So after that, which episode did you watch next, Alex?
I think I actually watched them in the order we wrote them because I found them all online.
Oh, okay, so I think you did it a little differently than me. So what was the next one?
So I ended up going to the Trapped with a Vengeance, which I immediately thought of Die Hard with a Vengeance when I just read the title.
Well, good news.
Good news. It did not disappoint because it's pretty much a Die Hard. But it's funny because they're doing a Die Hard 3 title, but they're referencing the first Die Hard.
Yeah.
But the gist of the episode, just to like do a real concise thing, is that Dexter works late at school and the janitor has to stay late because after Dexter's done working, the janitor has to put in overtime to clean up after Dexter's mess. And for lack of a better word, he's pissed.
Oh, yeah.
And so he seeks revenge and locks Dexter in the school and pretty much has like all these elaborate systems set up to like trap Dexter there. And he's like, you won't let me go home, so I'm not letting you go home.
Yeah, it has a full-on, like, the amount of money Yanni, which is the janitor's name,
Yanni the Yonitor.
Yanni the Yonitor must have spent on that place.
Well, you saw when they cut to his wife in the bed and like his bedroom, it was very meager because where all his real money went. Cashed in his 401k,
Yeah, Yanni is going to die broken alone, without a doubt.
His wife's going to leave him being like, you just spent our life savings to torment a child.
I think that was the episode we watched where they actually go through a kind of an introduction, and then Yanni is the one who kind of says the episode title, where he goes in, he's like, I work these long nights, you make me stay, and I hate it. And it's like, soon, I'm going to wait for you to have something important that you have to do, and then you'll be trapped with a vengeance.
That's right. The whole point is he's waiting for him to actually leave earlier than normal to go do something. And what is it? Is it Dee Dee breaks into his lab
Dee Dee
and he gets
breaks into
notified?
his lab and finds basically like a world-ending death ray or something. Or like, at the very least, is going to destroy the lab. And he's like, oh, and he has to leave. But I just really like the way they segue into that title card. Like, I wish more episodes did that. I found that. I was like, wow, that's a lot cooler than just showing me a card with the title and they move it into the episode.
It was a cool setup for compared to some of the other ones.
It was a strong episode, I did like that they couldn't do broken glass, so it was just like potato chips.
Yeah, no, that was great. When they're in the cafeteria, it's just nothing but broken glass. And then to do blood, the janitor's just throwing ketchup packets at him. And it's just blood splurts, like squibs.
Yeah.
Like on him. I also appreciated the fact that when he's in the ventilation duct, there's a scene where he's like falling in an elevator shaft, but they're in an elementary school that's 2 stories.
Yeah, he gets.
But it goes on for like.
Well, and Yanni almost kills him in the elevator. He ends up on the top of the elevator. He's going to smash against the roof. Dexter's trying to stop it with his feet. His shoes burn off. He is like barefoot, trying to get through.
I forgot that's how his shoes got burned. There's like little things I forget about. Like, wait, where did he lose his shoes?
Yeah,
the elevator trying to break it.
Yeah, and given the amount of effort Yanni put into that entire scheme, Yanni should probably be more than just a janitor at that school.
Some people just don't aspire to be more, and they're comfortable with where they're at.
Yeah. Now, I did find it funny that at one point, Yanni's wife burst through the front door to yell at Yanni. That's how
burst through the cafeteria.
Burst through the cafeteria doors that, mind you, were locked, and then
she's very strong. She's a big character.
Proceeds to yell at Dexter and Yanni, and then tells Dexter to then unlock the door. I was like, you just came through those doors. And she's like, now unlock the door. And I was like, Okay.
Man, you were like really focusing on the inconsistencies here. I just accepted the world as it was. You're
No, I was just kind of paying attention and looking at it. And I was like, there's some weird little goofs, you know. So
But were they goofs?
that I don't know, but I would assume that yes, they were probably some goofs. But
Probably.
yeah, and that's fine. You know, there's nothing wrong with it. It was still, I think, out of all the episodes we watched, that one may have been my favorite. I think.
I personally enjoyed it just because I thought it was clever how they made it Die Hard, but for kids, and then Yanni was a really funny villain to like spell out why he was so mad, and I'm like, that's actually not a bad reason to be angry at this kid.
Yeah, no, he's fine. So, you know, yeah. So honestly, I thought that was probably my favorite of the episodes that we watched. What did we move on to after that?
So next we have So just to throw this out there, we picked a few episodes that we would 100% watch, like the same episodes, and then from there, if we wanted to watch more, we could just watch whatever, and then bring it up. And then we ended up watching some of the same episodes anyway.
Yeah.
So the next one is, well, I'll let you explain it, but I'll say the title. Dexter and Computress get Mandark. Computress.
Yeah. Yeah, so this one I had to do a little research on. So this episode was by far the weirdest one we watched.
But for very obvious reasons.
Yeah, it is narrated, well, it's written and narrated by like a 6-year-old.
6.5. They make a point.
Oh, yeah,
he
that's
says
true.
he's 6.5.
He's 6.5, yeah. And at that age, that half counts.
Sure does. That's like 12% of his life right there.
Yeah, it was narrated by one Mr. Tyler Samuel Lee, who won a contest. And he got to narrate, and he got to write and narrate an episode. So it's kind of like, if you've ever seen Drunk History, it's like that. Like the kids just talking, or kind of like Axe Cop, where the kids just kind of rambling and going on, and they're just almost like drawing around his ideas. You know, Mandark gets a giant head. His head explodes. Now there's hundreds of Mandarks, you know. And he does, I believe, all the voices.
Oh, no, he does. And my favorite is when he keeps saying Dexter's line. What is like, you're stupid.
Yeah,
you're stupid. And he's doing it.
And he's just like, when he can't think of what to do next, he leans into the stupid for a good like 10 more times, and then it's like.
But I also liked when he didn't know what to do, and he's like, and then Dexter says, and then it just kind of freezes on Dexter, and Dexter just holds the pose for a second.
He just looks puzzled, and then it just.
And then the kid starts going off on a tangent on something else.
Yeah, they just ignore it. But you can hear his mom in the background a couple of times, like, do Mandark's voice, you know, and he'll do Mandark's voice and stuff. You know, all in all, it was a cute episode.
And the animation style is kind of made to look like a kid drew it. Like they were not even keeping.
Yeah, they dialed back.
Like even though they do very basic animation, they dialed it even further back.
Yeah, it is worth noting that at the time, and I don't know if this is still true, but at the time, it was the only cartoon episode ever recorded in history that was scripted by a fan. So normally, for legal reasons, they can't do this.
Well, it's like unsolicited scripts and different weird things like that.
Yeah.
Like it's when you're pitching scripts to Hollywood and directors, they're like, I can't do it if it's unsolicited, if you're not represented, and I don't know.
But apparently, when you're 6 years old,
It's probably union rules too.
Sure. Yeah,
like Screen Actors Guild?
Yeah.
I don't know which one of it is, but it's one of those things I just said.
Yeah. So, I mean, all in all, a cute episode. Like, would I go back and rewatch it? Yeah, probably not. You know, does it hold up? No.
I mean, it's fun because it's weird, and then to know it was like legitimately written by a 6.5-year-old.
Yeah. And I mean, it definitely has a bit of that, you know, gravitas to it and stuff, and you can see, like, kind of what you said, the kind of almost like cheap animation style they apply to it. They draw his mom in. There's a lot of cute stuff to it. And it's just, and funny enough, Computress, they end up using her in a video game. Like they named Dexter's computer in a video game after that. So.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, so that was kind of a cute throwback.
So then the next one was Dee Dee and the Man.
Oh, was this the one?
This is the one where Dexter gets fed up with Dee Dee being too overly energetic and destroying his lab. And so he takes her into the office and does a really good little monologue. And I know it probably they're referencing something. And I could not figure out what they were referencing when he's sitting there doing a little monologue about how he wants, like, pretty much he's just doing a monologue firing her. But it's like the episode, this segment's only, I think it's a half episode one, so like 10 or 11 minutes. They probably spend a good 2.5 minutes of him just firing her in this like monologue in an office.
So I will say, I noted that. I actually timed some of the scenes in this episode because I felt like they went on for a long time.
You're a real nerd. I'm just guessing how long.
So yeah, exactly that. Dexter calls her in the office, fires her. She goes off on a tangent, loses it.
Or a temper tantrum.
Yeah, and he basically, and then it cuts to Dexter being super happy. And he's like, and you see him repeat the same animation, him like smiling. He's
It's like the same 4 or 5 tasks.
Yeah, he's doing the same 4 or 5 things. Then it cuts to him like not as happy. Then him not happy at all.
Realizing something's missing.
Yeah, that scene, and I remember watching it, and I was like, wow, this is going on for a long time. Yeah, it literally went for more than a minute and a half. And I was like, wow.
Out of the 10 to 11 minutes?
Yeah, so they took those 4 clips and just repeated them for like a minute and a half. And I was like, wow, all right, that's one way to fill an hour.
Well, when you're churning episodes, like that's a fast way to finish an episode.
That's how you do it. But then Dexter starts doing interviews for a new candidate to be his sister because he needs chaos.
But my favorite is that his ad or when he calls a temp agency, he says, I need a nonsensical sister.
Yeah.
And one of the jokes in there I loved based on that phrase.
Would it be the spastastic nun?
Yes.
The spastastic sister.
Oh, was it spastastic is what he put in the ad?
Yeah, well, I can't remember spastastic, but I remember I think the nun introduces herself as spastastic sister. That's me. Haha, get it? I'm a sister. Nah, like I'm a nun. It's like I gotcha. So it's like
I really appreciated the nun joke in there.
Yeah.
Then there's another one that is like some weird. I don't know how I would describe the woman, but they just cut to her and she's like, they were already dead when I got there.
Oh, I love that. I made note of that. Yeah, it was like it looks like an older babysitter type.
They're just
woman.
doing a montage, and this one woman. That's all you hear her say.
They were dead when I got there, and it was like,
and he's just like,
I thought that was great. And the it's fantastic. And then what did I got here? I definitely make note of it. They were dead when I got there, and then ends up hiring the like really hot blonde.
Oh, and this is where I was like, it got creepy real fast because said hot blonde, where he already is letting it known that he is turned on by her in their interview. Suddenly it cuts and she's wearing Dee Dee's outfit.
Yeah, which is not fitting her all that well.
No, it totally is. Just very inappropriate for a child of Dexter's age.
Very busty. She ends up kneeling down at one
and
time.
like touches him on the back of the head and says, "Oh, what does this button do?"
Yeah.
And Dexter has to go off camera and dump cold water on himself. And I'm like, he's getting hot and heavy over someone cosplaying his sister.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Oh yeah.
I
No,
even
he's
wrote
gonna have some issues.
I wrote that exact phrase: "Is he's getting turned on to a cosplay of his sister?"
Yep. Now Dexter is going to have years of therapy after that. Keep in mind, he is supposed to be about 8 years old.
Yeah, it's never blatantly said, but
it's always 6 to 8 is kind of. I have their ages. It was always left to be kind of a void. We don't want to tell the age. We want to kind of go that route.
But it's like he's in elementary school, so he can't be above 10.
Yeah.
And Dee Dee's his older sister, and they go to the same school, so.
I do like when he's like trying to then work in the lab, and he's asking her to dance. He's like, no, dance. And she's like, nah, that's going to be $50 extra. And like,
I was
gives
like,
Dexter
what is
this
going
look. And
on?
I was like, I see. Clearly a lap dance. Yeah. And then they both break the fourth wall at one point to like, it's like, this isn't a show. She's like, I thought this was a show. And
he's like, no, I'm a kid. This is my lab.
Yeah, this is my laboratory. She's like, I'm still going to fire my agent. Yeah.
Yeah, storms off, and then Dexter's left sad, and then a hand interjects into the frame with a wanted. The same one he gave his sister to put in the girls' bathroom or locker room. And he gets his Dee Dee back. And he's totally happy.
Yep, that's what he was missing.
Yeah, the relationship between Dee Dee and Dexter from at least the few episodes I saw is always very interesting, where it's like there's always the underlying love, but man, do they annoy the hell out of each other.
How would you put Dee Dee and Dexter's alignment on like the old D&D chart?
Well,
I guess Dee Dee might be a chaotic good.
I would definitely say chaotic good, because nothing she's doing is meant to be malicious.
But Dexter, I don't think I would put good at all. I think he is probably a neutral.
I would go neutral because it's more self-serving.
Yeah.
He's not out to get others, but he's also not out to help others. But he does help here and there. But it's more of a neutral thing most of the time.
And most of the time he's trying to help, it's very narcissistic. He's not helping to help. He's helping for gain or glory or something. Like, I want to be somebody's sidekick, or I want to watch my TV show, or...
Could be like lawful neutral.
Yeah,
Because he does good stuff, but it's all like for his own self-interest.
Sure. That makes sense.
Not good for the sake of doing good.
Not good for the sake of doing good. And then after that, we moved on to...
Our final episode, where we synced up, is Dee Dee Be Deep.
Oh, boy.
This was the episode I actually disliked the most.
Yeah, I'm actually in full agreement with you. This episode killed me. It's Dee Dee is intentionally singing terribly bad.
Like the voice actress is singing horribly on purpose because Dee Dee wants to join, I think, the school choir or something.
Yeah. So she's practicing. So Dexter just
and that's like half the episode is just hearing her sing, and I'm like, this is actually really hard for me to watch right now.
Yeah. So Dexter kind of invents ways to make her singing better, and
of course she screws it up and then flips a not a dial but like a switch down from treble to bass,
which is basically large black man, because she was played by her deep voice was played by Kevin Michael Richardson, who's a very prolific voice actor who plays. You've heard him in like Family Guy and other things like that. He's been in several things, but he definitely plays that booming, deep black voice. Really has a lot of power and bass to it, and you hear the floor shake. And of course, because she's got this voice, she gets kicked out of the choir because they don't find it good.
Well, she also destroys the school.
Oh yeah,
because her voice is so deep, she can't help but like vibrate everything enough to destroy it.
Mm-hmm. But gets picked up at the end by like a
barbershop quartet.
Yeah.
It didn't click with me at all.
No, I'm right there with you. I
found it irritating, and then the last half where like she has the deep voice, just payoff wasn't good enough compared to some of the other episodes.
Oh, completely agree. Now, granted, because these episodes I think in the series of Dexter, there's only one episode that is the full 24-minute length. That
not
is,
a segment.
That doesn't have a segment. So all of these segments all of these things that we're referring to thus far have just been roughly between 8 to 12 minutes.
Yeah, give or take a minute. It's just they're pretty short most of the time.
So what were some of the other episodes you watched?
I did mention to you when we initially got together today that I watched 911.
I also watched 911.
I thought was actually, I would have much rather watched that than a couple of the other ones, to be honest.
Yeah, I thought it was great.
The basis of that is he's watching Action Hank, which is a action superhero, not superhero, but just
also same voice actor. That's Kevin.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, it's just kind of like it almost reminded me of like a muscly Shaft.
Yeah.
Like a jacked up, roided up Shaft character. And suddenly an emergency broadcast test happens, but it just says emergency broadcast system or whatever. And the boo, that noise. And Dexter, it happened right in the middle of like a badass fight scene where it was going to be like Action Hank versus like 3 or 4 nemesis. Bad guys.
Lots of bad guys.
Enemies, villains. And it cuts to that. And then Dexter gets this really smart idea that if he can solve the emergency that's causing this emergency broadcast alert, then maybe they'll cut back to his show. So then it's just a montage of him just saving the day, of doing really silly things like plucking a cat out of a tree while wearing a giant mech suit.
Yeah, I was going to say with a giant robot. He ends up having to deliver a baby.
Oh, I forgot about the baby.
Who proceeds to then call it like a baby girl. They're like, it's a boy. And
because they do a callback later to another baby.
Yeah. Then he ends up having to put out or save a busted dam.
He saves a busted dam with a helicopter that has a giant bucket underneath it, and then immediately they're like, oh, there's a hospital on fire or something.
And so he flies over to the hospital, puts out the fire, and then he gets to the ground so he can catch the same baby he just delivered into his hands. And then it's like, here's your girl. And the mom gets all pissed off again. But meanwhile, the family is at home.
God, I love the cutaways to the family in this,
Yeah, and they're watching the emergency broadcast.
which is just a static, not television static, but it's just a static screen of that noise with emergency broadcast. Like, that's all it is.
Yep. Oh, yeah. Just
Reacting to it like they're watching a comedy or a
Yeah.
drama, and like they're full on reacting. And
So
it's
that moment
crazy
when
funny.
there's a moment when Dee Dee sits down first in front of it, and she just gets there and she starts mimicking the
she
sound.
just stares at it.
And I swear my little sister used to do that. Like, I was like, oh. And at that point, I was like, oh, Dee Dee reminds me a lot of my little sister. Like, just this, like, she'd just sit down and just boo. And, like, this creepy.
Tried to
like,
match the tone and just stare at it.
Yeah, I'm like,
The
oh.
creepiest is when it's Dee Dee before the parents join, and Dee Dee's just like, like,
oh, yeah, it's laughing,
just cackling like
losing
she's
it.
watching the
The
funniest
parents
thing.
join in. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it is nuts. It is nuts.
And
So-
of course, when it cuts back and it's finally over, he finds out that it was just a test. And then his show comes back on, and guess what he missed?
Well, yeah, it cuts away to Action Hank, who's like, man, that is probably the most action I've ever seen. Yeah, yeah.
And Dexter is very downtrodden.
Yeah. Oh man, I was thinking when I was watching that episode, when was the last time I was watching TV and had like an emergency broadcast test?
Well, now it's just like a scroll at the top or bottom, because I do watch TV when I'm like working from home.
Yeah.
And I'll have like the news on or something, or I'll just really shame myself right now and say, "Let's Make a Deal" will come on with Wayne Brady.
Wayne Brady is the host of Let's Make a Deal?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I haven't watched any of that.
Oh,
in a
it's
very
one of
long
those
time.
like it's nice to have in the background because it's like my morning meeting's done like via Skype, and I can just watch the dumbest TV show where it's all pure joy. They're so excited to be there.
Remember when we were kids and like every time you were sick and home from school, you always end up watching Price is Right.
Guess what comes on right after that? With Drew Carey.
Drew Carey. Yeah. Oh man. Wow. I haven't thought about. Yeah. I only predominantly do streaming, so I haven't seen all
Yeah. Oh, all I was gonna say is like the broadcast, the emergency broadcast test will come on, and now it's just a scroll across the bottom or top of the screen, but the noise will be like, boop, boop, instead of that like constant.
the stat screen that look at. Well, and back in the day, I think that would come on too when TV just kind of ran its course. Like TV wouldn't be 24-hour.
Yeah, TV would
broadcast.
shut off at like midnight, and it was the color bars.
Yep.
With the like the I forget. I took a television class once, and we talked about the reason for color bars and that tone, like the frequency specifically. There's like a reason behind it.
Interesting. Yeah.
I know the color bars are there so that you can adjust the broadcast signal to match the colors accurately, like so that your signal is matching what the real color should be.
Oh,
I think that's,
okay.
or it also helps. I think you send it out so people can adjust their television to match the color.
Man, that's crazy.
That's like CRT days. Now you don't even have to worry about any of that.
No, I can't.
Now it's
imagine.
like, my TV's in game mode. Now it's in filmmaker mode. Now it's in. Anyways.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's crazy.
God, we just aged ourselves
Oh,
so bad.
right? I'm feeling it now. I was like, man, it's me sitting in my shag carpet watching, like,
Watching
well,
Bob Barker, Price is
and
Right.
I was like, well, that's the end of television. So now it's the color bars, and I had 3 channels.
God, I remember like, we'll take a quick side note real fast. I remember having a television that was at my grandparents' house that literally had the dial turn on the TV, and it's an old CRT. But weirdly, I think they bought it in Dallas because all the channels were very specific to the Dallas broadcast channels, like the dial.
Oh,
Does that make
interesting.
sense?
Yeah.
It was real weird.
I had, when I was a kid, the first TV I had, like my own TV. It was like in my bedroom.
VCR combo.
No,
everyone had that.
I had
I
that.
didn't.
I did eventually. No, my first one was this old black and white television. Like it had like it turned on with a knob and stuff. And I remember I'd stay up late at night and I'd like sneak in like an episode of Frasier right before bed.
Oh, you rebel.
Yeah, that was me. I was like, I'll stay up late and I'll watch it because I think Frasier came out at like 9:30.
I watched a ton of Frasier because The Simpsons came on, the late night Simpsons at like 10, and then Frasier was 10:30, and then I was allowed to stay up until like 11, right when all that ended, and go to bed.
You were allowed to stay up till 11.
Well, that was more like closer to late middle school when I
Okay.
was watching that stuff, and my mom was kind of okay with it.
I was definitely not allowed to stay up till 11. I had a pretty strict bedtime. I think like 9 o'clock. My parents were pretty eager to get me. I was pretty a pretty big troublemaker. So they were eager to be like, look, Yeah, it's getting late. And I'm like, the sun's still out. And they're like, yeah, but you got to go to bed.
I'm just thinking of Ben Stiller from Happy Gilmore. Go to sleep, or I will put you to sleep.
So, anyways, we went on a bit of a tangent there, but getting back to Dexter, what?
Blackfoot and Slim. That was a great episode.
Blackfoot and Slim. I love that
I'll let you
one.
talk about that one since
Yeah.
I stole the way with 9/11, 911.
Oh, yeah, very different episodes. Blackfoot and Slim. It starts off as just a nature documentary. I think it's narrated by Tom Kenny, the voice of SpongeBob and several other characters.
I couldn't put my finger on who the narrator was.
Yeah, so it's just great. He's just kind of. I think my favorite is when they talk about his like ability to procreate, and he basically builds like a giant robot and then celebrates his like procreation by doing this weird like dance. And I was just like, nice, it's just him following him around, and then they follow him into the shower, and that's when they get caught. And it's a fairly short episode,
But I do love the breaking of the fourth wall where Dexter realizes some omniscient voice is talking about me and my day and what I do.
He's taking a
and
shower.
he's naked.
And so
they don't show anything, but it's just great to see that, like...
Oh, you get some good Dexter ass. He's just, getting
That's
in
true.
the shower.
But I just love the, He's figured it out.
In fact, I know they show some Dexter ass because they trank him in the ass with a dart at the end. Like, he gets shot with a tranquilizer dart, hits the ground, and then wakes up and he's got a tag on his ear.
There's another one, I think it was an episode that had to do with Dexter going to school for the first time, like his first day of school. Oh, it's the introduction of Mandark.
Oh, I didn't watch that one.
Not detracting, it just shows more Dexter ass because he's getting ready for school and he jumps into the shower. And this one is like full on like shot from behind and you just see everything. And I'm like,
okay,
not necessary. I don't need to see. But thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for the accuracy.
Hey, they want you to know that 2 foot whatever he is, because he is so short that,
Oh, yeah. The proportions of him and Dee Dee are just insane. He's like a third her size, and she looks like she's 6 foot tall, but then next to the parents, it's like Dexter then comes up to like their knee.
Yeah. It's... Well, and, Dexter, of course, has that Eastern European accent.
From nowhere.
No, from nowhere. Yeah, the creator straight up said, like, well, I feel like all scientists have accents, so we're going to give him an accent.
Well, he was saying that that's what Dexter would think or something like that.
Yeah.
To be a true scientist, you need to have an accent.
Yeah, for sure.
The introduction of Mandark was pretty good. It's just that he goes to school for the first time. It's like first day of school. Dexter's stoked. Mandark ends up being the new student, and then they have a rivalry right off the bat. Mandark is actually one-upping him every single time. And then Dexter destroys his lab because Mandark sees Dee Dee, falls in love with her. Dexter sets up a date between the two of them in Mandark's lab, where Dee Dee proceeds to destroy his lab.
Interesting.
And it cracks Mandark, and that's when he becomes, like, definitely a rival. But they say mentally traumatized because he's never, ever one-upping Dexter ever again.
So I watched an episode that was about, I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. I didn't really write much down about it, but I just remember it came on, and I just kind of powered through it. But it was Dee Dee's rival, and it was Mandark's little sister.
Oh, that's
great. Who
great.
was also in dance class, and they were, like, competing against each other. And then they both had, like, giant robots that dance off in the thing, and they had stolen from their brothers. And at the end,
great.
like, find a friendship and walk through a wall together and, like, off into the sunset.
It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, sure. So, and then I watched Misplaced in Space. I had to go and watch this episode.
I did not watch that.
Yeah, so this one, the importance of this episode is this is like an episode that Seth MacFarlane wrote.
Oh, I should have seeked out the one of the episodes he wrote.
Yeah. So it's worth noting that there were other writers for this show. Seth MacFarlane wrote a couple of episodes. This was being the most prominent one. And then Butch Hartman, who later would go on to do Fairly Odd Parents and Danny Phantom, wrote a couple of other episodes. And this was, primarily how these people kind of got their start. Seth MacFarlane later would go on to do like Johnny Bravo and some other stuff. But I was like, oh, okay, I am definitely going to go watch this episode. It is in no surprise knowing the stuff that Seth MacFarlane does today.
Like,
that
what
this
does he do
episode,
again?
Yeah, Family Guy, Orville. You know the man has a love and affinity for space. And
Well, he helped finance and get the funding for Cosmos when they rebooted it with Neil deGrasse Tyson, actually.
yeah,
He's a producer on it.
Yeah, and so this whole episode takes place in space. And it's Dexter on a slave planet with a bunch of aliens who are and he's just trying to survive alien prison. And Dee Dee is getting frustrated that her parents that can't find Dexter. She's like, where is Dexter? And so she keeps asking her parents. So she asks the dad, Dad, have you seen Dexter? And he's like, yeah, he's outside. And she goes outside and it's a lawn gnome. And it's like, and he's like, no. And then she goes back inside and Dad just gives her a thumbs up. So very neglectful parents here. The next one comes to, the next one is she asks Mom, have you seen Dexter? Yeah, I've seen Dexter. She's in the fridge. Opens the fridge, it's a ham. So
Dumbest, worst parents ever.
So then she basically goes into the lab. The computer's like, you're not supposed to be here, Dee Dee. You got to get out of here. And she's like, I'm just trying to look for Dexter. If you don't start telling me what to do, I'm going to start pressing buttons. She's like, whoa. Let's not get carried away. Dexter's on this planet. And she's like, so she goes on a rescue mission. Basically, it looks like she's about to brawl. This guy is about to eat Dexter. Really, she just cooks him dinner. And then takes Dexter, getting him back home. And then talks to Dexter and is like, yo, Dexter, you got to say thank you. Why aren't you saying thank you? And Dexter's like, I'm not going to say thank you because I got stuck on that damn planet because of you in the beginning, And it's worth noting that whole intro that they did with Trapped with the Vengeance, they do the same thing with this one. Dexter narrates, and then it's misplaced in space. And I was like, that's a cool little intro. I enjoyed that.
Neat. Yeah, I didn't get to see that. There was also one that the referenced in the title and the thumbnail of the episode was something to do with D&D. And I was meaning to check that one out as well. But
there's so many there are so many good episodes that I really wish we kind of touched on. There's a good D&D one. There's one with all the accents that I love.
There's a Star Trek one, I believe.
Yeah. There's some real good ones in there. The other one we watched, I think we both watched this one, was the Eyes.
Yeah, which is just a real creepy one where Dexter's walking on the sidewalk and a little girl drops her stuffed rabbit and he just hands it to her and they lock eyes for a split second and she becomes a stalker.
Yeah. And until Dexter's just she basically we are now dating. You did this thing for me. We are in a relationship. And Dexter does not want to be in a relationship.
And how does he get out of it? By kidnapping, using a teleportation device, a little boy from a birthday party.
Who's just as creepy.
Oh yeah, same eyes and everything, and then ends up the girl and this new kidnapped boy start falling for each other.
Yep.
And the end, but it was just a real weirdly creepy episode and some cool psychedelic art stuff in the montage that was really cool.
Well, they went with the straight up Scooby-Doo music theme. There was this little musical intro that they're talking about. And it was straight up a tribute to the old Scooby-Doo stuff, you know, at least that's the feeling I got. It was very much running through the doors and that kind of stuff.
Oh, that's true. That was that.
Yeah. So I was like, I get what you're doing here. And then I think it's worth mentioning the other episode we watched, the one that did not air until 2013.
How can we not remember to at least mention that we watched it? I don't even remember what the title was.
Rude Removal.
Yeah, this one was weird after watching a handful of normal Dexter episodes, and then this one is a very vulgar, not pulling punches or bleeping, rated R version of Dexter.
So a little background on this episode. It was I think they produced it and made it right after, maybe in between seasons 2 and 3. And it did not get past the standards. No surprise there upon watching it, and it was kind of controversial, mostly for language. I think it's almost all language.
Definitely language.
Yeah,
there was nothing else offensive. If you bleeped out everything, it's not a.
Well, and I think when it originally aired, so they aired it on Cartoon Network in 2013. Finally, because they admitted that they had it. So they toured around to art festivals with that episode. and they would air it, and that was the only way you could see it. It didn't air on actual television until it aired on Adult Swim in 2013, and I believe most of it was beeped because it had to have been. They're dropping f-bombs every other word.
Yeah, and all it is that Dexter separates the good and rude side of him and Dee Dee. So there's like the pure good and then the pure rude evil, and the evil ones pretty much say nothing but f-bombs.
Yeah, there's all actually I think almost in the same plot of Rick and Morty. You know,
Pretty sure they've done something like that.
Yeah, like we're gonna take out the toxic part of you, and and do all of that. Yeah, so the kids just bad mouthing mom. Dad does not make an appearance in this episode.
Oh man, they destroy the kitchen and
tell mom to fuck off. Yeah, like it is. It is an intense.
Definitely not for their normal audience.
No, not at all. Not at all. It was an interesting episode. I don't know. I don't know if it deserves kind of the controversy it has. It wasn't my favorite episode that I saw. I thought it was fine.
It's just controversial because of the language.
Yeah.
More than anything else. So.
It was interesting that they created it. So
knowing that they would not probably be able to air it, which is interesting to use resources to do that.
Yeah. Did you have any other episodes you want to touch on?
I think we've gone through most of the ones I remember. I saw like a couple of the Justice Friends ones.
Yeah.
Probably another one or two of the Dexter segments. Yeah. I just don't recall them as strongly.
So it's worth noting that after... Oh, and this is where it gets weird because I'm not going to lie. We watched this on HBO Max and their Cartoon Network channel, which is great. I'm happy it's there. It's cool that they have it. However... their seasons do not line up with the seasons written down anywhere else. I think they've got like 5 or 6 seasons listed, but realistically it only went 4.
I think it's 5 seasons, but all 5 of those are the original 2 seasons. I don't know if they include the third and fourth. They do.
They have it all. Yeah,
okay.
They have everything. Because I specifically went and kind of researched that a little bit. Because what Alex is referring to is that after the first 2 seasons aired, Jindy...
They did a movie with him and the original
they did Ego Trip
team,
to kind of wrap it up. And it was like a made-for-TV movie, which is pretty much contains the plot of Spider-Verse, Dexter traveling through time, collecting versions of himself to battle Mandark and versions of himself.
So that, just to throw the date out there, that was in December of 99. Is when that movie came out.
Yeah, that's when the movie came out. And I think the series wrapped up in 98 prior to that, season 2.
Yeah, June of 98.
Yeah, so we didn't really have anything. We didn't have any Dexter for months, maybe even over a year. And then that movie came out.
Almost 2 full years between the movie and what followed after the revival.
Yeah, so then they did a revival series. And so they brought the series back. And oh boy, the casting and the direction, the art direction, all of this kind of took a big change. I wouldn't call it necessarily negative. It was just very different.
I guess I'll put it this way: is like here's a good quote about the revival.
Yeah.
3rd and 4th season. It literally says, from what I read online, revised visual design, sound effects, recast voice actors, continuity shakeups, and a transition from traditional cell animation, which was used until Ego Trip, to digital ink and paint. So, like, literally,
you can definitely
changed.
see the digital. Like,
so everything changed, and then it's noted the creative team changed, because by that point, Jindy was doing his next series, which was
Samurai Jack,
which again, insanely popular cult classic cartoon.
Oh yeah, no. Well, at some point we will have to cover Samurai Jack. One of the narrator for Dexter's Laboratory is none other than Aku. It's Mako. Uncle Iroh. So one of the things I did make note of, which was really weird, was the voice actor for Dee Dee. So, and let me make sure I got this right, because there's some weird little like casting notes here. But so Dee Dee was voiced by Allison Moore in seasons 1 and 3, but then Kat, and I might butcher this last name, but Kat Cressida was the voice actress in seasons 2 and 4.
Pretty sure you did butcher that.
Oh, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Cressida? I don't. Yeah. But yeah. So same voice actress for seasons 1 and 3, and then same voice actress for 2 and 4.
Could be weird scheduling stuff too.
I mean, it would have to be, right? With
that is really weird.
But they did. The most notable voice though that they changed was absolutely Dexter, who they got rid of. Christine Cavanaugh, retired. She just kind of was done voice acting. Was like, well, I had enough of this. And you know, prior to that, she was Babe and Chucky. So she has some pretty prominent roles.
Let's be specific about Chucky, not Chucky the doll horror movie, but Chucky from Rugrats.
Ah, yes, sorry.
Two
Yeah.
totally vastly different characters.
Very, very different Chuckies. Yeah.
And then Babe the pig.
Babe the pig, and then she was, and then Dexter was voiced by Candy Milo, who would later go on to be, I believe she's Lola the Rabbit. So I could be
from
wrong.
Space Jam and onward, right?
Space Jam and onward, is that? Let me make sure I got that correct. I'm pretty sure that was her, because or no, Candy Milo. I take that back. She was Granny in Looney Tunes. The voice of Granny, that old lady who's in.
Sure.
Tweety Bird and all that.
Oh, yeah. I know who you're referring to now.
She also voices the witches and stuff like that. It's also worth noting that she's only 60 years old. So she's playing these like real old characters, but she's not that old. So anyways, so there was a lot of casting change up, for these seasons and for these new seasons and stuff. It was interesting that they decided to bring it back. I don't quite know what prompted that. I couldn't really find much. They got a different showrunner. Yeah, the dollar
See, what
bills.
you don't see me doing is
Yeah.
I'm rubbing my fingers together. That money. I mean, it could have been a cash grab, or maybe fans were harking for more. Who knows?
Yeah.
I'm sure there's like a either financial gain or a people will watch it because people love it.
Yeah, and they ended up handing it off to Chris Savino, who was not nearly as successful as Gindy, and mainly because he was fired for sexual harassment charges in 2017.
Jesus.
More than a dozen women, and he threatened to blacklist them from Hollywood if they didn't give in to
His pressures, we'll
the
say.
pressures. Yeah.
Jesus.
So
I'm glad he got fired.
Yeah,
I hope he's
kind
blacklisted.
kind of a piece of shit. Yeah. So, he was fired. The last thing he produced was something called The Loud House, which admittedly it's a Nickelodeon show I'm not familiar with. It's been on air for 5 seasons, but he was fired about halfway through it, 2017.
Good.
So he's done with that. So agreed. It's probably for the best. So Dexter's Lab kind of had 3 endings. It had.
The season 2 ending.
The season 2 ending, which I went back and watched today, right before this episode. I actually really enjoyed that ending. I thought it was pretty cool that rather than do the segments, they actually just did one episode that was about 25 minutes long, and they brought in all the characters from the segments into the show, which I thought was a great idea.
It's a good way to wrap it up if you
Yeah.
think you're done. Have all the characters meet at some point.
Yeah, well, he was in he was in a foreign exchange school in Japan, accidentally releases a kaiju.
Like you do.
And then tries to battle it, loses, so they call in, Monkey and the government. They lose, so then they call in...
The Justice Friends.
the Justice Friends, and they come in, and then they lose. Dexter then has to go home, fire up his homemade Voltron, but he has to get his parents. He has to tell his parents about the lab because he needs their help. So
Which is a perfect way to end it since they've never known about the lab the entire time.
Oh, so that's his kick. They have, but Dexter continues to erase their memories.
Okay, that might not be neutral anymore.
Yeah. And in fact, at the end of the season finale, what was meant to be a series finale, his parents start kissing because he erases their memories again after they help him win the day. And then Dexter himself finds out that Monkey is actually his monkey. So all secrets are out. Everyone knows everything. The kaiju's beaten. They're all celebrating. The parents are races the parents' memory, but then the parents are in these tight jumpsuits and they think they look hot, so they start kissing. Grosses Dexter out, so he erases his own memory. and then so Mandark takes all the credit for beating the kaiju.
That's such a good ending.
And the only person who remembers anything is Dee Dee. Dee Dee's the only one whose memory's never been wiped. So Dexter doesn't remember that his parents about the lab. The parents don't know about the lab. Dexter doesn't know about Monkey. Everything's safe.
And then Dee Dee's just
yeah, Dee Dee.
Guys.
The last shot is actually Dee Dee just smiling at the camera, and then it just cuts away. Yeah,
that's a beautiful ending, actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Ego Trip. I watched that today as well, and that was kind of the finale movie, and that was very much a Spider-Verse
Like
take
you
on
mentioned.
it. Yeah.
Goes through time and grabs himself to help out.
Yeah, and and the whole note of that is there is the one the one who will save the future, the one who's meant to do it.
Is it Dee Dee again?
It's Dee Dee, yeah.
Of
Yeah,
course.
they end up in a stalemate, and Dee Dee comes in through a teleporter. It's like, what does this button do? It just blows everything up. But it's worth noting that there are 4 versions of Dexter, and there's Kid Dexter, who we know and love. Then there's Grandpa Dexter, like old man Dexter, frail, flying around like a Professor Xavier kind of thing, super old. And then there's one that's just referred to as like 12, who like worked with like Mandark, and he's like kind of a wuss and gets beat up on and stuff.
A beaten down Dexter.
Yeah. And then there's this other Dexter, which apparently, and these are all supposed to be like not multiverse, but just different times. This Dexter is buff. Like,
a jacked Dexter?
Super ripped, bald, and fights with a giant wrench. Like, badass Dexter.
I need to go watch Ego Trip now. Just to see all the iterations of Dexter.
Yeah. It was interesting to see. And they have all the different iterations of Mandark, which are, about as you would expect. There's, evil Mandark, then there's Brain in the Jar, giant fat Mandark,
Basement nerd, you mean?
Yeah. So you got all those versions of Mandark. Both I thought served as great finales to the series. The continuation afterwards is all supposed to roughly take place before Ego Trip. In fact, there is an episode that ties in directly into Ego Trip. It sets up Ego Trip with like, yeah.
Just seems unnecessary.
Yeah.
Especially if you're already going to like wedge in like a season or two in between seasons 2 in the movie that like ended it. Seems unnecessary.
Yeah. So all in all, I thought both finales were great, were fine. The additional seasons were different. And again, I watched a couple of episodes, and admittedly, I didn't find any of them incredibly noteworthy. And even the stuff we pulled from the list of like must-watch episodes, I mean, none of them were referencing that season.
Mm-hmm.
Like, hey, go on and watch seasons like 3 and 4. And it was like, no. And it is worth noting that the one that ties into Ego Trip in that later season was done by Jendi. He came back. Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah, so he came back and he's like, well, let's do a tie-in episode. And
It's
so,
like, why not? Sure.
yeah,
It's my legacy. This show's my legacy.
Yeah. Let's get this done. So it was good. It was I thought it was solid. Now, all in all, do you think Dexter holds up?
As someone who's never seen it before,
Yeah.
I would say yes. Because I can see where it was going in the direction of like where Cartoon Network ended up going, and how this was one of the starting points of them doing their own stuff, and how this could bleed into something like Adult Swim has become. And
Yeah.
because it's like, it's bonkers, it's surreal, referential to like adult stuff like Die Hard. There's Star Wars references. I'm sure there's even more and more references if you really get down to all the episodes that kids are probably not going to really know about. So I can see how it was the birth of a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So I would say overall it holds up. There's just some episodes that I think didn't hit for me. But that's maybe a personal thing. So
it's kind of funny because we think, I think back often to like, like Cartoon Network is such a staple, right? It's been around for forever. But we kind of grew up in an era where it was like just coming out. And this really, like you said, this kind of pioneered it. There were 5 original like cartoons that got voted for full series. And that was pretty much Cartoon Network's first blown original concept.
Because I didn't actually watch Cartoon Network a lot growing up, and you were the one that was like, oh, it was just a lot of reruns of like Hanna-Barbera and like Tom and Jerry or whatever.
Yeah,
old
Wacky
cartoons
Races, it was like Wacky Races and Yogi Bear and all that stuff. And that's predominantly what it was. I mean, it was kind of, I think, what Boomerang would later kind of turn into.
I have no idea.
Yeah, and so I thought it was really interesting that they ended up doing that. It was just a lot of reruns and stuff. So it was kind of cool to see them have like their own original content and whatnot. It reminds me of kind of when we watched the CW, or back in our day, it was the WB.
Oh, God, yeah.
Right? And, like, that was a new channel when I was a kid.
Oh, yeah. It was like UPN and WB were, like, new channels.
New channels. Yeah, we had, like, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, I think, and it aired on those. I think.
I thought Fresh Prince was NBC.
Maybe it was just reruns.
It was probably reruns at that point.
Yeah. Anyways. Yeah, you're probably right. So I thought that was pretty good. Then we've got, kind of the where are they now? Well, it's worth talking about. Probably the only person really worth mentioning here is going to be Jendi Tarkowski. We already talked about Chris Savino.
He hasn't really done a whole lot of note since Dexter's lab. So, is he really worth noting?
Ooh, boy, does this man have an impressive resume.
Yeah, no, I can't be sarcastic enough to invalidate his resume. It is quite impressive.
All right, help me with his last name again. Tarkana.
No, say it.
Ooh, Jendi Tartakovsky.
Tartakovsky.
Oh,
I think that's how it is.
boy. Yeah, reading is difficult for me. But yeah, no, he went on to do, well, he went on to do Samurai Jack, which was incredible, Symbiotic Titan, Primal, Hotel Transylvania movies. And
Which, real quick, for Primal, one thing that I learned that I had told you about was that Primal actually was a contender for Best Animated Feature for an Oscar. They took the first 5 episodes, put them together, and edited them as one movie that was an hour and a half long, and toured it, I think, at art houses or showed it in LA somewhere, doing the bare minimum to get it recognized and be able to be nominated. So it was one of 32 that year, so that's pretty rad that something off Adult Swim could get to that status of potentially being nominated.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've watched Primal. It's amazing.
I saw the first episode and I was like, wow, this is a heavy hitter.
I'm excited for his new show, the Unicorn Warriors Internal, which, despite the name, looks pretty dark.
Yeah, I just saw the thumbnail that you saw, and it looks pretty
Kind of steampunkish,
interesting,
like goth backgrounds.
Yeah,
look.
they didn't have
Unicorns
any,
written in blood. So
yeah, and they didn't have anything about the story or where it might what's up with it. It's just 2021.
Yeah,
is all I heard. So.
Yeah, it was like teenagers who are like these ancient warriors who get reincarnated as teenagers, and they don't have any memories of what they were, so they have to deal with kind of like wacky teenage hijinks while trying to
but they're these eternal warriors.
Yeah. So doing that whole thing, yeah. And then, like I said, we already talked about Chris. He's he's a douchebag, and he's we probably won't see him again.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, agreed. So and then the other one worth mentioning would be Christine Cavanaugh. She was the original voice actress of Dexter, and unfortunately, she passed away some years back. I think around 2013, maybe 2014. Not really sure how, but just passed away. She's fairly young, which is very sad to see. So rest in peace. She didn't do much after Dexter. She kind of retired, from voice acting to spend time with her family and such, which I thought was, hey, more power to her. Rick Moranis did the same thing. So and that guy is still great. So yeah. But yeah, so that was Dexter's Laboratory. It was a nice little trip down memory lane.
It was all new to me, so
Yeah.
So it was interesting watching something that I don't have a nostalgia for.
Well, I believe next week we are going to be doing
Thundercats Ho!
All right. I did not watch Thundercats.
Neither did I, because we've already aged ourselves, but we're not that old.
Yeah, we're not
for
old enough for
Thundercats. We're not Thundercats old.
Yeah, if we gotta age ourselves, like Thundercats old would be like, maybe not my parents, but
no, it'd be like an older brother,
older
brother or sister.
Yeah,
because it debuted a year after we were born.
Yeah, 1985, and
it only lasted 2 seasons, an episode a day.
Yeah. We looked at the episode count today, and it
was on for like a year or a little more than a year, but it was like every day.
Right. Yeah. Each season 65 episodes.
Yeah, 130 episodes. We were looking at it, and we were like, this is going to be a very massive taking because it also has a lot of its own lore and fandom, and we're just not familiar with it.
Yeah, I'm actually really excited to kind of dive into this.
Did I do the Thundercats Ho correct when he holds up the sword?
Thundercats Ho!
When he holds the sword up. I wasn't doing the song.
Oh, yeah. No, it's not the song. He got his...
Thundercats.
He's got to say it like 3 times, I think.
Oh,
yeah, Thundercats.
Oh, we'll get into this next week.
Might have egg on my face. I'm not too sure. I should know this. Even just from spoofs, I should know this. But I'm pretty sure he says like Thundercats, ho. Like I think that's the whole shtick. So that's all right. Anyways, we will thank you for joining us. And we will catch you next week on Tune In for What? Thanks for listening. We would love to hear your thoughts, feedbacks, and what cartoons from your past you would like us to check out next. Please hit us up on Facebook and Twitter at TuneInForWhat, and we hope to catch you next week. Take care.